Hi.
So you're the finder of lost children?
Oh, you must have saw me on television. Yeah, I like working with children.
Hey, Chandler, come on, will you, okay?
Shut up!
A child has been kidnapped.
When?
5 days ago in northeastern Tibet.
Well, Tibet's a little bit out of my territory.
Eddie Murphy is an investigator on the track of a kidnapped holy child from Tibet in The Golden Child, which is kind of a cross between Beverly Hills Cop and Indiana Jones. Most of the movies these days seem to be a cross between something and something else. It's one of the new movies we're going to be reviewing this week, and I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune. The Golden Child is an easy film to review. Eddie Murphy is a whole lot more entertaining than the film itself. In The Golden Child, Murphy plays a cop of sorts, a finder of lost children. But to his amazement, shortly after the film opens, he's asked by a beautiful woman to go to Tibet to find a magical child who has the power of bringing either peace or disaster to the world. At a temple, they seek a magical sword that can help free the child.
We have come to ask for the sacred cross dagger of Ajanti.
For what reason?
For the Golden Child.
Let him ask it. I said, I want the knife.
Back home in California, he confronts the film's bad guy who wants to use the dagger to turn the Golden Child into an evil creature.
I could destroy you, just like that. We wouldn't want that. Listen, bring me the boy, and I'll give you the knife, and then no one will have to be destroyed just like that.
The villain may be dull, but Murphy is very funny when he simply jive talks with one of the film's many weird characters, in this case a 300-year-old cigarette-smoking wise woman hidden behind a curtain.
Do you have any other questions?
As a matter of fact, I do. What are you doing this weekend, because your silhouette is kicking?
Now that's funny, and when he just talks, The Golden Child works, with Murphy playing sort of Bill Murray's role in the Ghostbusters, always wisecracking. It's a very funny film in those moments. But the film also has 4 fight scenes with a hard rock score behind them in the first 40 minutes, and most of those scenes and the Tibetan special effects, they just don't work. So it's a movie with fits and starts. I just wish Eddie Murphy talked more and there were fewer special effects like in Ghostbusters. A mixed review from me.
I liked it a whole lot more than you did, Gene, and I thought that he talked a lot. What do you mean talk more? He talks all the way through the movie, and that's the glory of this movie. He's like Bob Hope in one of those old road adventures, wisecracking about everything. Like. And it was really an entertaining movie. I think it's the only movie this Christmas time that's appropriate for the family, apart from the obligatory middle range 4-letter words, not the real bad 4-letter words. And I think Eddie Murphy this time really did seem to be at home in the material, as he didn't in Beverly Hills Cop.
I think he is at home when he, oddly enough, when he is at home, and I'm talking about the scenes in California in his home base, those are a whole lot better than all of the stuff in Tibet and all of the special effects, all the fighting. If they would have just left this guy alone with this woman, who has a great relationship, all that stuff, it would have been much more interesting.
You mean you didn't like it when he followed the magic parakeet to Tibet, or the time when he's got the revolving pillar there in the temple?
I'm telling you that
disco music.
The movie broke in half for me. Every time he's back in the States, it's funny, and every time he's with Tibet, which means special effects, it didn't work.
I think it's a real silly movie and a real
It is a silly movie and funny when he is working at the right time.
Well, luckily he's on the screen in every shot, so that you weren't often disappointed.
He isn't.
Well, let's say 90% of the time.
I don't know.
Maybe 85. Okay, next movie.
Going down. Mark down sale here.
Our next movie is another offbeat comedy that I liked a lot, too, although it certainly has nothing in common with The Golden Child. I think we can agree there. The name of this movie is Crimes of the Heart, and it stars 3 of the top actresses in the movies these days, Jessica Lange, Diane Keaton, and Sissy Spacek. They play the McGrath sisters, who were raised in a rambling southern mansion where their mother got national headlines by hanging herself and the family cat at the same time. Now they are reunited again after Lange comes back from Hollywood to join Keaton and Spacek at the old family manor. And the occasion, Spacek had just shot her husband in the stomach. The sisters quickly bail her out of jail.
Lanny, I'm free! I'm free!
Oh, babe, are you oh, take me home. I'll take you home. We're going to go home right now. Oh, you okay, babe? Oh, was it terrible in there? I bet it was awful. Don't you worry.
Babe!
Oh,
little babe!
babe!
Spacek grows so disconsolate that she tries to commit suicide, but she's not very good at it.
What the hell have you done?
Nothing.
Get up. Oh, baby. Come here now. Just sit down. Just sit back down here. Oh. Baby.
I'm okay.
Here, put your head between your knees. Now breathe deep.
Meg.
Come on, do
Meg,
what I
I
say.
know why she did it. I know why she
Come on,
did
just
it.
do what I'm saying.
Meg, I know why she done it.
Oh, babe, why? Why?
Why what?
Why did you put your head in the oven?
Oh, I don't know, Meg. I'm having a bad day.
She is having a bad day. Earlier, she tried to commit suicide by hanging herself from the upstairs light fixture, but she pulled it out of the ceiling, and then she drags it downstairs on the floor behind her while she sticks her head in the oven. It may sound kind of grim, but actually this movie is oddly funny. Crimes of the Heart is based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning Broadway play by Beth Henley, which, when I saw it anyway, seemed to be a good deal more serious than this movie is. In fact, the film version develops into a genuine oddball comedy in which those three actresses seem to have a lot of fun bouncing off of each other. Now, sometimes when there are three big names in a movie, they all seem to be trying to edge each other off the screen and steal all the big lines, but not this time. Spacek, Lang, and Keaton create completely nutty, eccentric, weird characters who really do seem to have a family history together, maybe a mental history too. They have a lot of fun doing it, and I had a lot of fun watching it.
I did too. It grew on me. It's a little bit talky for me, as a play usually is when it's translated to the screen, and I thought it's a little too clever for its own good. And if they had been a little looser, they would have been bounced more, if you will. I think the actresses actually saved some of the dialogue. I found there also, it is funny in this gruesome kind of way, and I also found the serious level too, because there is Keaton's uptightness, and there is Spacek's purity in a world that's not as pure as she is, even though she's shot her husband. And then there's Lang, who's a freewheeling spirit, and there's a little touch of sadness there too. So I actually think they pull it all off, but the overlay is funny.
One of the movies I was reminded of course, was Night Mother, the Sissy Spacek's last film, where she spends 2 hours talking about how she's going to commit suicide. She says more about suicide and several other things in 10 minutes in this movie than she did in 2 hours of the other one.
I agree.
And this movie has, when you said it grew on you, me too. At first I thought another one of these film plays where they're going to sit around and talk for hours. And then it really took on a life of its own, and it really had a lot of energy.
I agree. Coming up next, comedians Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short star in Three Amigos, a comic western set down Mexico way.
I'll come back one day.
Why?
Our next film is Three Amigos, a western comedy with a Mexican flavor, and when the film started, I was laughing because the three stars, Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short from Saturday Night Live, look very funny in their flamboyant black costumes with silver braid and red ties and cummerbunds. And they are very funny as they sing the film's opening song, the credo of the Three Amigos. But then the movie starts, and it becomes boring very quickly. The three guys play three silent movie actors starring in westerns as a trio known as the Three Amigos, and through a series of silly circumstances, they get involved in fighting bad guys in Mexico for real. And of course, they're total pansies, totally unprepared for life in the real West. The film does work when it parodies the fake backdrops of the old Technicolor westerns, as in this hilarious campfire song.
All of the doggies are in the corral. All of your work is done. Just close your eyes and dream, little pal. Dream of someone.
But the movie goes steadily downhill when the battle lines are drawn, even though the Three Amigos think they are just putting on a show for the bad guys.
It's a pleasure working with you.
Well, you dirt-eating piece of slime, you scum-sucking pig, you son of a motherless goat.
Who are you? Wherever there is injustice, you will find us. Wherever there is suffering, we'll be there. Tell us we will die like dogs. What? Tell us we will die like dogs.
You will die like dogs. No, we will not die like dogs. We will fight like lions, because we are the Three Amigos.
You know, I really didn't come to a Steve Martin or Chevy Chase movie to see him run around in desert. You know, I could watch old reruns of the Cisco Kid or something. Aside from amusing scenes, all involving music, and there's one great one involving a singing bush in the desert. That was very cute. Almost everything else in this movie is a total loss, as the jokes get repetitive and we simply laugh at those wonderful costumes. I was very disappointed in Three Amigos. Its script doesn't take many chances with a cast that previously, especially Steve Martin, has made us laugh at some very wild and crazy material.
I was very, very disappointed, too. This is not a good movie. The Randy Newman songs are funny. Randy Newman wrote them, and he performs as the singing bush.
Yeah.
Martin Short, who was so
brilliant,
weird all last year on Saturday Night Live, everything he did was funny. This time they seem to have him in a straitjacket, maybe because his wild comedy doesn't go along with the real laid-back style of Steve Martin. And as for Chevy Chase, he's so laid-back that occasionally all he seems to be visiting as a, visitor to the set today, just looking around.
I had the same reaction. When I saw them riding up there in the beginning, I almost made a decision about the movie. Chase looks dead. Martin looks joyful, and he's in character. He's got nothing to do in the movie. That's unfortunate. Very little to do. And Short just seems almost like delighted to finally be in a movie and is given nothing to do.
Yeah, so that they didn't really
have a script.
And so maybe what they thought they were doing was satirizing this genre, and the problem
of course
is
they were.
Nobody now alive under the age of 25 remembers the movies they're satirizing.
Well, even if they had done that, they should have had more scenes like that Technicolor scene with the bush. I would have done the whole thing as a fake stage thing.
Well, that could have been funny. You mentioned the Cisco Kid. To today's teenagers, he's as old as Shakespeare, They've never heard of him. When we come back, we'll review Modern Girls, the story of three Los Angeles women who never seem to need any sleep.
You do this every night?
Last Tuesday I had a cold.
And this one stars three actresses in a weird comedy, the story of three young women who work all day, sleep all evening, and they party all night long. It follows them through one very long and tiring 24-hour binge. It's supposed to be a comedy. The story is set in the neon-lit world of trendy LA dance clubs where the real attraction seems to be showing how you belong and nobody else does, especially not the nerd that they're out with in this scene.
I mean, we're all great girls. Kelly might be prettier, but Margot, tell him which one of us is sexier.
You're 10 points sexier. I'm what?
No, I'm 6 points sexier and she's 10 points bitchier.
From left to right there, that's Daphne Zuniga and Cynthia Gibb. Later on, they team up with their third roommate, played by Virginia Madsen. She's already done a few drugs tonight.
Who are you people?
There was hardly a scene I liked in this movie, but the scene I hated the most was the one where the blonde girl, Virginia Madsen, takes drugs and then passes out on a pool table with a bunch of guys advancing on her. That seems to be a direct steal from the infamous New England rape case of a few years ago. And what were the writer and director thinking of when they put that scene in? I don't think they like women very much.
They just throw the scene in and then don't comment on it at all.
No, then the French come in and say, oh, let's get out of here, and they leave, and the would-be rapists stand around looking like they didn't have any more dialogue, which is probably true. Because Modern Girls is such a worthless movie, I want to sort of separate the actresses, though, from the junk they're in, because we have three talented people here in Virginia Madsen as the blonde. She was in Electric Dreams, which I liked a lot. Daphne Zuniga as the brunette. Remember her as the hitchhiker in The Sure Thing. And Cynthia Gibb from Fame as their best friend. Now, they've all been in better stuff before, and maybe they'll be in better stuff again. I hope so. This movie is just an unfortunate chapter in all of their careers. And as for the director who makes music videos, I think he should go back to making music videos.
Yeah, because we don't see music videos. You don't watch them, and I don't watch them either.
So we wouldn't have to look at any more of his work.
Yeah. This is a movie that is about a long night out, and a lot of bad things happen to these girls. But the attitude of the director toward this material is absolutely neutral. Nothing. In other words, it's not commenting on it negatively. It's almost presented as if it's fun.
Yeah.
There are no lessons learned. It's just nonstop action. I didn't realize it was a music video director, but that would explain it. Just throw stuff at the camera, basically. And you have to fault the women, too. I mean, they participate in it. Let's not
well, maybe somebody thought that there was going to be an attitude toward this material.
Walk into
either
a movie
cautionary or trendy or something, that we can enjoy the fact that these people have a good time all night long in Los Angeles, but gee, it doesn't look like a good time to me.
No, there's nothing on the page, and it doesn't go to the screen, so everybody gets a little spanking for that film. Coming up next, our video segment is devoted to the films of the late Cary Grant. We'll each pick one film to rent from his extraordinary career.
What are you doing, Alicia? What is this, Mr. Devlin? I'm taking her to the hospital to get the poison out of her.
Our weekly home video segment this week is devoted to the films of Cary Grant. Which one should you rent? He made 72 films in his career, and we are each now giving ourselves the impossible task of selecting just one of his films to recommend that you rent. Roger got to pick his first, you lucky guy, and since his pick was going to be my pick, and you'll hear about his pick later, my pick is really my second choice and is selected in counterpoint to his pick. Are you with me? I don't care whether you're with me.
Fascinating.
Are you with me? But it's a great Cary Grant film, not the suave Cary Grant of Roger's selection that I would have picked, but the robust young Cary Grant in Gunga Din, his great 1939 adventure film featuring a young Cary Grant as one of 3 Army sergeants fighting and sharing lots of laughs.
Hey, the gold! Yes, I've gold! Look at it, mates, look at it! Hey, gold, that's what it is! Real solid sunshine! Whoa! Look at that! Why, you see that little hand sticking out there? I'll bet that little hand's worth 3,000 quid if it's worth a farthing. Who's the big idiot now, eh? We're rich, mates, we're rich, come on!
Great energy there. He had charm in the company of women, everyone knows that. But early on in his career, you could see it there in Gunga Din, great energy in the company of men. It's a great example of that all-encompassing Cary Grant spirit. It's also the film that Grant once told me that was his personal favorite because he had so much fun making it. And I think that fun of those 3 men shows on the screen.
Gunga Din would not have been my second choice for a Cary Grant movie. I probably would have picked Holiday, or maybe Philadelphia Story, or North by Northwest. It sure is lots and lots of fun.
I thought just about doing it differently because it's a side. Those are. I would agree that they're probably better films. Although Philadelphia Story isn't really. It's more Stewart and Hepburn. But I thought to show people if they want to rent, and there are young people. You talk about young people not remembering the Siskel Kid. I think when they think of Cary Grant, they do not think that Cary Grant made an action picture, and that is why.
Okay, in that case, I'll give it to you because Cary Grant is very good in Gunga Din, and it is a lot of fun. But in my favorite Cary Grant movie, which we also know is your favorite Cary Grant movie, is also one of my favorite movies of all time. It's on my list of the 10 greatest films ever made, and it's called Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious, with Grant playing an American agent who heartlessly and cold-bloodedly sends Ingrid Bergman, the woman he loves, into marriage with a Nazi spy played by Claude Rains. The movie contains one of the greatest kissing scenes of all time, the longest kissing scene up until the moment this movie was made, and notice how passionate Bergman is and how Grant plays hard to get.
This is a very strange love affair.
Why?
Maybe the fact that you don't love me.
Hello? Palace Hotel? Fanning Place? It's T.R. Devlin. Any messages for me? When I don't love you, I'll let you know.
What's great about Grant's performance in this movie is that the whole plot is really about what he thinks about her. That's really what the movie is about. First, he only wants to use her. Then, he falls in love with her. Then he thinks she's turned into a lush, but actually it's arsenic poisoning from the Nazis. But then he realizes his mistake, goes in and rescues her, and there's a romantic ending. Who but Cary Grant could have summoned up enough irony to go through all of those changes with a straight face? It's a great movie, and a great way to remember the man who some critics have called the greatest movie star of all time.
And I like the line you just said, with a straight face, because this is what acting is about. Alec Guinness in his Academy Award speech said the art of acting is doing nothing in front of the camera. And Grant goes through all of these changes and really doesn't use a whole lot of body language. He knows what we can read through his eyes and manner, and this is my favorite Cary Grant film. It is one of the greatest films of all time. Rent it if you haven't seen it, and rent it if you have.
And Cary Grant himself was often the first person to put down his own wonderful, enormous talent. There's a great Cary Grant story where he was asked by a younger actor, what do you need to be a great movie star? And his answer, a tan.
Well, he had more than that, I think. Now to recap our reactions to the movies on this show. Roger and I split on the Eddie Murphy comic adventure, The Golden Child. I liked half of it, the part in the United States. Roger liked the whole thing, 1 thumb up, 1 down. But we both enjoyed Crimes of the Heart, the wacky and poignant story of 3 very different sisters. The movie's a bit too talky for its own good, but it grows on you, 2 thumbs up. We laughed only occasionally at Three Amigos. We both expected many, many more laughs from Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short. 2 big thumbs down. And 2 thumbs down, down in the gutter with Modern Girls, a pointless story of 3 young women on one long, boring night.
So, 2 for Crimes of the Heart, and I liked Eddie Murphy. Next week we'll be back with reviews of more new holiday movies, including Richard Gere and Kim Basinger in a New Orleans thriller named No Mercy, and Platoon, the controversial new movie that claims to be the first realistic look at combat in Vietnam. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.